Hello, this is Scarlet and Rage podcast, and we are coming to you tonight on another live stream. We've been doing several of these here recently. Likely, it will be most of what we do moving forward. It just seems to be a better format for the show, and we really appreciate those of you who have been watching. If you would, please hit that subscribe button and give us a thumbs up if you would. That really helps us get the show out there. We appreciate those of you who have subscribed recently. I am Michael, the voice of reason, and this is my co-host Rage, the voice of rage. I guess I should say Jay, the voice of rage. Jay, how was your weekend? The Buckeyes got a big win, and most of Buckeye Nation is ecstatic, or at least happy. How was your weekend?
It was actually pretty good, Michael. I mean, outside of like the Ohio State game, which I'll get into in a minute. Yeah, I don't think that was really all that big of a win, honestly. But Halloween went well. I will say my neighborhood throws something out of like a movie in regards to Halloween. Michael, I think I sent you some text messages on that. Did you see them by any chance?
Yeah, I did. Looks like it's quite a production around there on the Halloween.
Heck yeah, it is, man. I really couldn't believe it. I was even surprised at how big it was. It looks like something out of like a Halloween movie or something.
Yeah.
Speaking of Halloween, man, and my persona, The Rage, I saw like my last Halloween movie I watched before I cut off like the scary-ish movies was 28 Weeks Later, Michael. Have you seen that movie? Do you know anything about that series?
Jay, you know the answer when it comes to horror movies. It's no.
I don't know if I would call that a horror movie.
Well, anything in that genre or in that ballpark, I just tend to not watch.
Fair enough.
I don't know about it. That's the thing. I don't even know when they come out.
Well, the antagonistic force in that movie is not a person; it's a virus, and the virus is called the Rage virus. Okay. They actually are experimenting on chimpanzees in a science lab, basically trying to they were basically trying to find the cure for like anger and rage and all that stuff, but it backfired on them, and I guess the chimps they went crazy, and it just did the opposite of what they wanted to do. But again, like the 28 Weeks Later is like the second movie in that series, and I just thought it was just an amazing movie. Probably the second best zombie movie I've ever seen. Maybe number one. It's like right there with Dawn of the Dead 2004. But yeah, man, I just think about my persona on here, and it's not really my persona or anything. This is what I actually think about. And the rage comes in on this podcast because when people get infected with that virus, they have the rage take over them. And that's what I feel like every time on this show when I come on. I'm like infected and I'm going like bloodlust, rage, crazy chimp person.
So let's talk about it. Do you think the rage virus got into the Ohio State Buckeyes this weekend? I'll go ahead and give you my thoughts.
Michael, you go first, man. Let you go first. Give your overall thoughts on this because I'm at a crossroads here.
Yep. Yeah. Well, before we get into it, I'll read SW line 26. Good to see you. I believe that's one of our Michigan fellows who likes to tune in. Appreciate you watching. Ohio State, Oregon, Indiana. Those three teams are the class of the Big Ten. I agree. I think that Indiana probably very likely could beat Penn State just because of Penn State's lack of offense. The offense is still not really up to par there in Happy Valley, but they are a good team. They are a legitimate top 10 team. Where do they fall? I don't know. And that leads me into my thoughts on the game, Jay. I look today at the rankings and I see Penn State sitting at number 6. And I look at the teams behind them and I'm like, worst case scenario, they're number 9. Okay. I think possibly they're 6 or 7. But I think worst case scenario, they're number 9. And the Buckeyes looked horrible a couple of weeks ago against Nebraska. I was starting to think all hope was lost because we know that during the tenure of Ryan Day, there is not a tendency for problems to get solved. Whatever the team is at any point of the season, That's kind of just what it is. It might turn on that high level, like in a game for a little while, but they don't string that consistent high level of play, that intense, aggressive, nasty physical play. They don't string it together for periods, for games at a time. Our Michigan Big Ten brother is on. They're a great example of that. They strung together a series of very physical, very tough games against very good teams, and they won a national championship. That's what you have to do to win a national championship. And I didn't think that this Ohio State team was capable of doing that. However, Jay, after this weekend, I am back on board that I believe the Buckeyes are going to make a run. I think they're going to beat Oregon in the Big Ten championship. And I think they're going to win at least 2 playoff games. And I think that they have a very good chance to win the national championship. And I'm almost in the camp of believing that Ryan Day might be the right guy to lead the program. What are your thoughts after this weekend's game, Jay?
Michael, I can't say I'm shocked, man. I will say that you have done this season a complete 180 from where you were last season. Even on this show, I feel like you have completely turned over a new leaf, sir. Before we get into that, what is it just existential force like this no longer weighing down? Is it just you feel optimistic about Ryan Day? You like what you see out of Ohio State? What are we talking about here?
Okay, so this is it. I saw physicality at a high level for probably the first time in the Ryan Day era. I saw a defensive line that exerted its will and won the game. What did I see last year? Alabama, Georgia. I saw a defensive line in Alabama that exerted its will, an offensive line that exerted its will and beat down the Georgia Bulldogs. They were just a little more physical. What did we see in Ann Arbor last year? We saw a defensive line in Michigan and an offensive line that exerted their will enough during times that they won the game. And they continued to do that on their road to the national championship. We haven't seen it under Ryan Day. We saw it on both sides of the ball. We saw it, on the defensive line, and we saw it on the offensive line. When the game was on the line, they got nasty. They got determined. Ryan Day didn't have to get cute. It was old, physical Ohio State football. Ryan Day had a different look on the sideline. He looked like he didn't give a flip. And I hope that he can keep that. Because if he can keep that, I think he's going to be okay. Because I think his biggest problem is he is a little sensitive to the noise that comes with being the Ohio State coach. And he looked unmoved Saturday. He looked determined. He looked sure. He looked confident. He did not look scared. And the team didn't play scared. The team didn't play tight. The team rose to the occasion and beat a good football team in a very tough environment. And I'm going to go with that. If, I was told by one of the former Buckeye national champions that they won the 2014 national championship in Happy Valley by barely edging out, I believe, an 8-4 or 7-5 Penn State team. But something about that experience brought them together. I see potentially a similar type of thing. Did they play their best game? No. If they played their best game, how bad could they beat Penn State? I mean, I think 27-10, 27-13, somewhere in that range. They could have easily beat them 27-13 yesterday had Will Howard not fumbled on the 1 square inch of a 100-yard field where it's going to give the ball back to, Penn State. So, I mean, just, the odds of it being 27-13 are like 99.99%. And to me, I'm taking enough from that to go, okay, you should have beat like literally, like, I'm not taking away the pick six. I'm not trying to, add any other things, just score the touchdown that you literally were about to score. Like you would have been first and goal from the 1 foot line. Like we're getting in right there, 27-13. And that's an impressive win. And I think it's a win that can kind of forge them together. I saw a looseness and a camaraderie in the coaching staff. Jim Knowles was excited. He was making sure that beat reporters knew that that's the first time that Penn State offensive coordinator hadn't scored a touchdown since the last time Jim Knowles faced him at Oklahoma State in 2021. And the team was just going wild in the locker room, being led by Ryan Day. And I think Urban Meyer maybe even had a little hand in it as he challenged the Buckeyes this week. From a public pulpit, he knew exactly what he was doing. He said that if they want to get the offensive line on track, they've got to play smash mouth, go get them, gap football, and run the quarterback 15 times. Well, they ran the quarterback 12. He only had 24 yards, but you take the sacks out, and he probably really had about 35 to 40 yards, somewhere in there. And so it gave the defense just enough to worry about that it opened it up for two extremely good running backs to average a blended almost 6 yards per carry. And I think that they found a formula if they will have the guts and the fortitude to stick with it. Charles Willis, how OSU won the fourth quarter is how champions impose their will. I agree, Charles Willis. That goal line stand was massive. This is SW line 26. Penn State tried to muscle it in. Ohio State wouldn't let them. No, big Caden McDonald shows why he needs to be playing 15 to 18 snaps a game. This 10 snaps a game is too little. That big boy needs to be in there. Rage, I've kind of gone over my thoughts here. Where do you stand after this weekend's game?
A lot of superlatives there, Michael, for a Ryan Day whose biggest problem is not beating James Franklin and Penn State. Like he's never had any problems there. James Franklin is Ryan Day just with less talent. I've said that. I've been pretty consistent even a few weeks ago, even after the loss to Oregon. A close game won by Ohio State over Penn State isn't going to do anything for this program. Yeah, Ohio State played a little bit more free, but did you look at Penn State out there? They didn't look like they were playing all that free. They honestly looked like they were playing a little tight. It's like what Ohio State does against everyone else other than Penn State. Ohio State's only claim to fame under Ryan Day, for the most part, is beating Penn State and one game against Clemson. And it's just like Ohio State shouldn't be measured on beating Penn State because Penn State is similar to Ohio State. They get outside of the Big Ten and they play good teams and they mostly lose as well. Like, yeah, they had the one game against Utah, but let's be real. It's Utah. It's not a team from the SEC, nor was it one of the big boys from the old Big 12, aka Oklahoma and Texas. Winning a close game against Penn State does absolutely nothing for the psyche and national view of this program. This is not a game Ohio State is measured on outside of blowing Penn State out, which, that could have moved the meter for me, but they didn't. Winning a close game against and I'm going to get into Penn State a little later. Winning a game against an overrated team like Penn State, I understand Penn State was in the top 5. Trust me, they're not even close to being a top 5 team. Winning that game is going to possibly save Ryan Day's job or make it less warm when it shouldn't. The offense yesterday, the offensive play calling yesterday was abysmally called, Michael, in my opinion. And while the defense played better, you have to remember how slow Penn State is on offense. Like, that is not an impressive offense to be pumping your chests up and stuff like that. Penn State, they're not it. Nothing has really changed in this game from a team preparation standpoint. And that's why, here's the hot take, Michael. Losing this game would have been better at this point because it means firing Ryan Day sooner and getting a head start at saving the recruiting class and the offseason. They're still not close to being a title contender, not after what I saw yesterday. Penn State is not all that good. Penn State will make the playoffs. I don't think they win a game there. That is just not the standard, man. That wasn't a despicable performance, but it was really, in my opinion, the worst case scenario. Ohio State did just enough to beat an overrated team on the road that was ranked in the top 5. And now all of the people are coming out praising Ryan Day. They did nothing special on offense. They played a little bit more aggressive on defense, but let's be real. It's a little easier to play aggressive defensively against a bunch of slow, skill level players, mostly from the Midwest. Just not very impressive, Michael. Ohio State, if they really wanted my attention or people's attention to take them seriously, they needed to win that game by probably 21 plus points.
Well, I think that it could be a catalyst for the team. Again, in 99.9999 games that play out, Ohio State does win the game 27-13 on the road and only gives up 6 points. Will Howard, obviously, you can't discount that, but he threw it to a read that my 13-year-old who is also a quarterback was yelling, "Don't throw it," because he saw that the corner, the DB just sat right there. But it's like it was early in the game. He was a little keyed up, and he was going to throw it no matter what that DB did, whether he sat or whether he dropped. And it just gave him 6 points. And so, but as far as the defense, I mean, they didn't give up a touchdown. They gave up 6 points. Should they give up more than 6 points to Penn State? No, they really shouldn't, because Penn State doesn't have a good offense. But, does it mean that they can stop Oregon and hold Oregon to 27 points or less? No, it doesn't necessarily mean that. So I agree that Ryan Day's questions are not answered. I just have an optimism that they are figuring some things out and that they are going to go into this stretch run with this momentum. And ultimately, if they go to Indianapolis and beat Oregon 38-37, nobody cares that they beat Penn State by a touchdown at home. They're the Big Ten champs, and they will be going to a high seed in the playoffs, either number 1 or number 2. Very likely number 1, because they would probably be number 3 beating number 1. So depending on what Georgia does, we'll see. They're probably going to play a Texas A&M or somebody in the SEC championship game. That's not going to carry as much weight as a win against Oregon. So very easily could be the number 1 seed, waiting to play the winner of the number 8 and the number 9 seed for a chance to advance to the Final Four. So that is, that's still the goal. That's still my standard. I just have a new optimism that they can do it.
Michael, man, I almost needed to cut you off there because I needed to push back on you here a little bit. This is a team filled with 4th and 5th year guys, and we are beyond halfway through the season, and you still think they need to be building towards something? Michael, this program and this team should have been a finished product before the year. They spent $20 million fucking dollars on this roster, and you're telling me they're still having to figure things out and how to tweak stuff? You have like this loaded NIL roster, and we're having to settle for this struggling bullshit. Like, where is the dominance? Where is everything that was supposed to be advertised? I mean, I'm not fooled by it, but they're trying to gaslight our fan base into thinking that this is some juggernaut team. Well, if they're a juggernaut team, I don't expect you to struggle with a team that's really not all that good in Penn State. I don't care if it's a rivalry to them or not. I expect you to go there and blow them the fuck out.
But the thing of it is, when you look at the national landscape, what's Georgia going to do when they go and play Penn State? They very well might lose if they go into Happy Valley.
Georgia wasn't advertised to be this team, Michael. Ohio State was. But Georgia has 2 titles in the past. The pressure is not on them.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is it doesn't matter whether this team is exactly as good as advertised. It just matters, can they get it done? And I think that there's a reasonable chance that they can. I think that, when I say things are coming together, yeah, I think there were some issues. I think it's clear that Jim Knowles has changed the way he's playing defense. It's a necessity. Is it a risk?
You can't judge Jim Knowles, and I said this. You can't judge this team again, and I've said this before. you can't judge them again, really, until they play a talented team that is in the top 5. That doesn't come unless they're lucky enough to get a rematch against Oregon. After that game, we can have these conversations about if they changed, if they haven't, because until that happens, I'm still just going to be sit back and just, unfortunately, Michael, I don't really enjoy watching this team. I just tune in just because we have a podcast to do, and it's my job to the fans to pay attention to this program and give people the truth, because I don't really find a lot of fun in watching this team. I sat there yesterday, Michael, and I didn't cheer. I didn't really get mad. I just literally sat there on the couch and just watched without an emotionless robot, like watching a football game is what I was. Just observing, writing down notes, talking points, just trying to take it all in, which probably makes me a better observer if I'm just kind of watching it unbiasedly.
Well, if let's say that Ohio State goes on and they play Oregon. Well, if they can beat Oregon, then they're going to be going in the playoffs. I mean, Oregon's a number 6 talent composite.
If they go to the Big Ten championship game and win out, they're going to go to the playoffs anyway.
They're going to be going to the playoffs, and but I'm saying they're going to be getting possibly a number 1 seed. And then they're going to be playing, if the playoffs were held today, they're going to be playing the winner of BYU and Indiana. Now, I like our chances to beat BYU, the winner of BYU, Indiana. If they, went on beyond that, they're obviously going to play some better teams, but there's only a couple of teams that are going to have like talent. Miami's not one of those teams. We could play Miami in the playoffs. They've got the 14th best roster composite wise in the country. University of Tennessee is not one of those teams. They've got the 17th best roster in the country. LSU is not much better than Penn State. They've got the 8th best roster in the country. Penn State has the 11th best roster in the country. So, outside of Georgia and Alabama and Texas, there is nobody else that really has a roster. And Oregon, I think you could say. Clemson is number 5. I don't think that that's quite translating onto the field. I don't think Clemson's at all the 5th best team in the country. But my point is, they're not going to play many teams. Maybe one, maybe 2, but probably just one. Outside of Oregon, counting Oregon, they're going to have to play 2. Oregon, and then at least one in the national championship game. But they're probably going to play a couple of teams with like talent. And if they can beat Oregon, I think they can beat anybody, because Georgia is certainly not unbeatable. Nothing else coming out of the SEC looks unbeatable. Alabama is scary, just because you wouldn't want all that talent to all of a sudden like come together one night in the playoffs when you play them. But there's just not that many scary teams. Texas, if they're as physical as they were, and if they continue to play with that type of physical, they'll beat Texas. I'm not worried about Texas. So, I mean, I think they really can beat them. If Ryan Day, loses to Oregon and then loses early in the playoffs, then I'll take it all back. But for the moment, I am having some positivity about this 2024 team and about Ryan Day's ability to get them on track.
Seems like more people are in the chat are agreeing with me than you, Michael. Just for this, I mean, I don't know, but yeah, I'm looking at the talent composite now. Oregon, them and Clemson basically have the same exact roster. I understand Oregon's number 6, but it's basically the same as Clemson. So,
and we have the same exact roster as Georgia. We have the same exact number of 5 stars and the same exact number of 4 stars.
Okay, yeah. Well, when we play Georgia, then I can judge Ohio State on anything has changed. If we play Alabama, I'll be able to judge them. Oregon, Texas. That's why I said Oregon that's where Ohio State will have the judge, jury, executioner, if they're lucky enough to beat Indiana, which, by the way, Indiana looks like a better team than Ohio State right now. We'll break down that game when it comes. I don't really feel like doing that right now. But just from surface, 10,000 foot view, Indiana's a better team than Ohio State.
Well, but I'm not saying that Penn State was the measuring stick. I'm not saying that the Penn State win solved all of the problems and answered all of the questions. I'm saying I think it's a possibility. It's a catapult, similar to the Michigan State game in 2014. They beat a good, not a great Michigan State team. but somewhat similar to Penn State. About the 6th, 7th, 8th best
Michigan
team in the
State in
country.
2014 was a lot better than this Penn State team because they had, I think Connor Cook was their quarterback, and they had a couple guys on defense that were going to play in the NFL. I think they were overall a more talented team.
They may have been a little bit, but I mean they're a comparable team. They're in the same ballpark. Again, somewhere between the 6th and 9th best team in the country. Michigan State went on to win a bowl game that year, beat Baylor. And, Ohio State obviously went on to win the national championship. So all I'm saying is I think it could be a catapult. We won't know until they play Oregon. I think we'll know something when they play Indiana. I mean, if they go out and beat Indiana 35-20, 35-17, then, I mean, that would be pretty darn impressive, but it still wouldn't, answer all the questions. The questions won't be answered until Oregon. But I just have a renewed optimism that things are back on track and they're going to get where they want to go.
Man, all right, looking at the chat here, it looks like a bunch of stuff just came in. Nice win, but Penn State sucks. I agree. I would not have say the season is saved unless you are winning the national championship now. Yeah, I agree. Unless Penn State is your new measuring stick. No, they never were for me. Maybe not for Michael either, but he's more optimistic. James Franklin is that guy we both make fun of and beat up every. Honestly, I was going to get into something with James Franklin, but let's just get into that now before we break down the game. Michael, did you happen to see what happened with James Franklin when he was walking off the field? Did you see that video?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I will say this. Credit to James Franklin here being a tough dude. That fan, whoever they were, was soft as fuck. I'm just being real. If you're going to talk shit, be ready to say who you are when he calls you out and not back down. That goes for anyone. If you're going to talk, then you better be prepared to fight. A lot of people just think they're safe. People become like, they're behind the internet. They have that sense of security. They can say whatever they want behind behind their keyboard. They get the sense of security when they're standing in the stands. Well, you know what? You're still a bitch. You might be actually safe, but you're also a bitch. Like, honestly, I would, if the guy would have said who he was and said like, "Hey, James, you fucking suck. I'm so-and-so." Then, hey, you know what? It is what it is. If they would have fought, they would have fought. I doubt either one. Well, I guess a fan would have got arrested. But if James Franklin would have went after him, then maybe nothing happens. But yeah, the keyboard warriors. That's right. Yeah, man. It's just credit to James Franklin is all I'm going to say. Good for him. Maybe he realized the guy wasn't going to do anything, but credit to him for like talking shit back to that guy, because people talking shit like that just randomly. Yeah, James Franklin is deserving of it, but you know what? That guy shouldn't be a bitch and just not walk away. That's all I can really say about that.
Yeah, I mean, I give Franklin credit in the press conference as well. He said, they haven't gotten, a lot of the games they want to win. And, he knows that with that comes some criticism, and it's all part of the job, and he takes it and he owns it. And it's a privilege to coach at Penn State. And so, I thought he handled that in a very classy manner. I'm almost rooting for the guy to win, not against Ohio State, but to win him a top 5 games.
I feel bad for their program, man.
I mean, he's 1-13 in top 5 games. I can't blame their fans for being a bit frustrated. 1-13. Ryan Day is now 3-7, and we're about to go nuts. He's 1-13. So yeah, very, very rough.
Yeah. Like I was saying, I feel bad.
He's 0-4 against the SEC in bowl games, and he does have a couple of wins against the SEC in the regular season against Auburn. So he's actually 2-4 overall against the SEC, but he is 3-5 in bowls overall.
Yeah, that's not good, man. And going 0-4 against the SEC in bowl games is that's pathetic. That can't happen. Penn State, they recruit fine. I think they need to recruit a little better. I think I already discussed that, but honestly, Michael, let's just get down to breaking down the game from what we saw. Let's just start with the offense. I'm going to start with the play calling first. Once again, Ohio State tries to run the ball, and they were doing better yesterday, But Penn State's weakness, we all know, they cannot stop the forward pass. Ohio State, they threw too many underneath routes. I think, how many pass attempts did Will Howard have yesterday? That's actually a really good question. Do you happen to know how many
I can tell you
pass
here
attempts he had?
Yeah, I can tell you here in about 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to the box score. Howard threw the ball 24 times.
Okay. I see all right. I see he threw it 24 times. He threw it 35 times against Oregon. Give the coaches credit in that game a little bit, but they needed to throw the ball 35 times in that game. And they needed probably like 3 or 4 more down the field throws. And the entire game, they're throwing underneath. It's clear that Penn State cannot cover our wide receivers. Now, at the same time, Will Howard doesn't fucking throw the ball very well, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. You should still try it and make Penn State believe that you're willing to do it, because Penn State got that pick 6 early in the game because they weren't afraid of Ohio State going down the field. Ohio State's lived off of like those comeback routes and hitch routes and swing passes all year long. Well, teams are going to become, more athletic teams than Penn State are really, really, really going to feast off those underneath throws. You just can't do it against really good defenses. No, Penn State is not a really good defense. They're solid, but they're not really good. They're not as good as they were the last 2 years defensively, if you ask me.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I think they're a good defense. Again, I think they're a good team. They're not a great team. They're a good team. And I think that the passing was a little bit concerning to me. You need to be able to, I mean, they won the game, so ultimately it doesn't matter. But you would think you could go out and throw the ball for 250 yards against a Penn State team like that.
Yeah, clearly, 182 yards.
Yeah.
He got sacked 3 times, and his longest pass was 25 yards. That's pathetic. That is absolutely pathetic. Now, I understand Jeremiah Smith did drop that one pass, but the other throw by Carnell Tate, just wildly out of bounds, and typical Will Howard. He just cannot throw the deep ball. And then when he does throw the deep ball, I think he caught the receiver off I think Jeremiah Smith literally thought he was going to underthrow him, so he slowed down, and then he's like, "Oh wow, he actually hit me." That was Will Howard's best throw of the game, was an incomplete pass. That's
the way I took it, is that he's so used to being underthrown that he was just kind of lagging back a little bit, but Howard ripped one right in stride. If he'd have kept running his normal route, it would have been an easy touchdown. So yeah, I mean, that's still a part of the offense that hasn't come together. I mean, it's showed a few signs of life, but it's not anything you can hang your hat on. That's for sure. That's why I think you do have to prioritize that running game, because you've got 2 of the best running backs in the country. Quinshon Judkins had 14 carries for 95 yards, averaged 6.8 yards a carry. Long was 22. Henderson, 10 carries for 54 yards for 5.4 yard, average, had a 16-yarder. I mean, get those guys the ball. I mean, you rushed for 179 yards. And you could have you can rush for 200 yards with these guys if you block it. If you can block it, and if you can be physical the way that they were. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't have to throw the ball down the field either. You do. But I think when you've got that run game like that, I think it just works in tandem with throwing the ball down the field. I mean, again, the 2014 team, was it the run, or was it Cardell that opened up the ball down? Did Cardell's deep ball open up the run, or did the run open up Cardell's deep ball? I don't know. People can debate that, I guess. But I think they work in tandem. I think sometimes either or can set up the other. If the defense is really struggling with the run, they're going to bring guys up, and you're going to be able to take a shot. So I'm not totally out on that it's never going to happen, but I'm certainly not going to hang my hat on the deep passing game of Ohio State at this point.
Yeah, so this gets into Will Howard. Will Howard, I've said it before the season, he's just above game manager, and he still is. And this is where it becomes a little worrisome. But he really can't win you games by himself. He's not talented enough to make the elite throws or be counted on to make the critical runs when absolutely needed. The Oregon game showed that, dropping the snap, missing throws against Penn State. I mean, hell, I understand you got, the fumble he had on the run that should have been a touchdown, and he just fumbled it out of like who does that, man? Like, you're supposed to be a solid runner. He actually had the ball tucked away in his left hand, and he still got it poked away. How the fuck does that happen?
Yeah, well,
I think I
again,
might have actually like given him more credit if he was just stupid and carried the ball in his right hand, but it was actually in his left hand, which is correct, like to the sideline. So,
well,
damn, man.
yeah, I mean, he definitely deserves a little responsibility for that. But on the other hand, he did have it in his left hand and it did what it's supposed to do. It poked out of bounds. It just happened to go right over the pylon. A really crazy little turn of events there. I will say that's another little piece of bad luck in a Ryan Day top 5 game. It's just that I don't think Penn State is actually a top 5 team, so they were able to get away with it. But you play a legit top 5 team in Oregon, a Georgia, a Texas, and you lose a touchdown that way. I mean, that's devastating.
Jacob just made a good point. He said with our team, Will Howard should not have to do much. He thought that was the narrative before the season. Well, here's the thing. Michael, in your opinion, what is the best part of Ohio State's offense?
Well, I mean, in my opinion,
what position group? What position group?
Wide receivers and running backs are pretty equal. I mean, wide receivers probably have a little edge, but I mean, I don't know if there's a second wide receiver as good as our second running back. Whether you consider Quinshon or whether you consider Henderson number 2, I don't think we necessarily have 2 wide receivers that both fit in that category. I mean, we've got some real good wide receivers, and it's certainly a strong point. But go ahead.
My point is, let's just say the wide receiver group is position group number 1.
Mm-hmm.
Wide receivers can't do anything unless who gets them the ball, Michael?
The quarterback.
Right. So in this offense, your quarterback is actually expected to do quite a lot. So yeah, Will Howard, maybe they thought the running game would have been better, but the running game is just okay now with the insertion of Carson Hisman. I'll get to that in a little bit. But we just lost our best offensive lineman for the season. This offense has to change. They have to be pass first, run second. So things have changed. Will Howard has got to step up and be not, he doesn't have to be CJ Stroud, but he's got to be something in between CJ Stroud and I don't know, Kyle McCord. I don't know. He's got to elevate. He's got to be somewhere in between there if this team wants to win a title. And he's not there. And again, he's a 5th-year guy. I don't think he's going to get there. I just think I've said it, he is what he is. He's got nice size at 6'4", but he has a weak arm. And he's, one thing I've realized, I've said this before, but Will Howard's not very fast.
No, I mean, he's certainly not a speedster. I mean, that last play of the game.
No, he's not very fast. Like, I mean, a lot of people catch up to him pretty quick, and that's scary. Drew Aller and the quarterback from Nebraska look like they're about equal athletic ability to him.
Yeah, I mean, he runs okay. I mean, that's about it. I mean, he's capable of putting his head down and getting 5 or 6. I mean, you're not going to get Howard probably breaking too many of 15 plus. But you don't need him to in the run game. You've got other guys that can do that. You just need somebody who's willing. The running backs blocked really well. For the one run the big run that Howard had, Henderson flat laid a guy on his back. I think it's an element that they're going to have to use. I do think they are going to have to try and figure out game plans where they can, and some of it depends on, on the way the game plays out and how much you get the ball and all of that. But I do think they're going to have to, in the higher scoring playoff game, he's going to have to throw the ball 27, 28, 29 times and get that run game going, because you got to use those wide receivers and those running backs.
Yeah. Oh, I remember hearing Will Howard was better than J.J. McCarthy. Who said that? I'm curious. Who said that Will Howard was better than J.J. McCarthy?
I don't know. I haven't heard that. I mean,
whoever said that is on drugs.
I mean, I certainly wouldn't have put Will Howard above J.J. McCarthy.
Indiana definitely better than Ohio State. I would agree with that, especially on a neutral field. The problem for Indiana is the game's at Ohio State, which, sucks for them, but it just is.
The Bucks are going to roll against Indiana.
Okay, well, we'll talk about that game in a couple weeks. Moving on. I know you. So we were just talking about position groups and stuff, and I want to highlight somebody to you.
Mhm.
Somebody that I was questionable at first, and then I made amends, but now I'm questionable again on this person, and that person is Quinshon Judkins, Michael.
Okay.
He's not impressing me very much anymore.
Really?
Yeah, he had a crease on the second offensive play of the game and only picked up 5 yards. And I just like that's alarming. That kind of like had my initial thoughts like earlier in the year that he just lacks burst and explosion. And yeah, he had burst and explosion against Western Michigan and Marshall, but it's Western Michigan and Marshall. So, and then let's not forget he did have that drop that was actually called a fumble on the field. And they're lucky they didn't keep that as a fumble. It was close. It was close. I mean, the call on the field was a fumble, and they overturned it to being an incomplete pass. And then number 3, now Will Howard, there was like I think one time in the third
Well,
quarter
now
he rolled.
if you
Go
if you
ahead.
if you go by the letter of the if you go by the letter of the law, it was not a fumble, and I knew it wasn't a fumble, and I was telling people on the phone that's not a fumble. They're going to get it back because he did not make a football move upfield. Now,
Okay,
is it
my
kind of a,
point is, it should have never got to that. Why is he even dropping the ball and letting it go in the first place? Why is he dropping it? Catch the fucking ball, you dumbass.
yeah.
That's my point. Don't leave it in the official's hands. Catch the fucking ball.
Yeah, well, that is two potential mishaps, that he's had in the two
No,
biggest
there's
games.
one more. I'm not done.
So hopefully he can clean those up. Go ahead.
The one when Will Howard rolled right. I don't know when it was in the game. I think it was the third quarter. Yeah, it was the third quarter. Will Howard rolled to the right. Should have ran. Would have been an easy first down. He instead launches downfield to Quinshon Judkins, who is wide open. If he catches that ball, supposedly he scores a touchdown. I didn't see the sky view film. He drops the damn ball again.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
Michael, I'm telling you right now, Quinshon Judkins, like my red lights are going off right now. I'm starting to get concerned about him. I mean, yeah, he's a solid number 2, but I don't know that he's a great back.
Here's what I think. I think he's a very good runner. I think 6.8 yards a carry. I'll take that every day. I how about when we use backs out of the backfield? Let's mainly focus on Henderson. Let's try and run those. Let's try and run those things when Henderson's out there if we're trying to hit a
Yeah,
back.
but then if you start doing that, teams are going to key on it.
Well, yeah, I mean you have to break tendency at times, but I mean you can kind of weight it that way. And so yeah, I mean I think Judkins is going to be fine. I believe in him. I think he's a quality back. I think he's very good runner. I think he's a great combination with Trey. And I think he'll clean it up as time goes. As by the next big game, Indiana, I think he's going to clean it up.
I mean, everyone always keeps saying that people are going to clean it up and players are going to clean it up. I don't ever see anything changing, ever.
Well, Brian Day won a top 5 game on the road.
I have to laugh at that. Okay. All right, fine. If you want to call it a top 5 game, that's whatever. I guess by the letter of the law it was. Back to the play calling, Mike. Man, what is up with the short side runs? Why the fuck do we run these short side runs that go nowhere like all the time? Like, what is the point of doing that?
I don't know. I'm not a fan of that either. But we've always done it. Day loves a short side. He used to love a stretch to the short side of the field, which I never got. I don't think they're doing that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they do still like the short side run.
The play calling before halftime, I think right before the half, it was just like, run, pass, get sacked. They should have been throwing every down with help on Abdul Carter's side. Like, Will Howard got sacked 3 times in that game. It's just, I just reading these. Okay, I don't want to get sidetracked here. But yeah, man, the play calling for the most part sucked the entire game. They should have had more than 20 points. I understand Will Howard fumbled once, but at the same time, Penn State should have had more points too. The score ended up about what it should have ended up. Ohio State definitely was a better team. Not saying they weren't, but like, to say that Ohio State should have blown Penn State out is being a little homerish, I think. I think the score ended up about being what it should have been, considering Penn State fucked up a lot of times too.
Yeah, I mean, maybe so. But my take all along was get out of Happy Valley with a win. Get out of Happy Valley with a win and move on and build on that. And so, that is what I think they're doing. That's what I think I saw. He says Ryan Day is a clown. Did you see him after the game? I was just waiting for the scarlet and gray confetti. Yeah, I did see him after the game. I thought it was better than like the Lou Holtz burst of emotion. I mean, the guy's obviously a little tightly wound. He's under a lot of pressure, and I think he's coached like it. And so I hope this is the crucible that Ryan Day has been under. I hope it's starting to yield its dividends, and the diamond is coming out of the coal there, and we're about to see a new Ryan Day akin to the Georgia performance, and he's going to carry it on for several games to the national championship.
Michael, Mr. Optimism, man. I think I should just call your name Mr. Optimistic.
Well, it's I think it's possible. I think
if the suit fits, man.
Yeah,
dude. Let's get to the defense now. The defense.
Well, before that, offensive line. Jackson.
Oh yeah.
Jackson was okay for a guard.
Yeah,
out there.
he was okay.
Hinsman, clearly, I think one of the better offensive linemen.
Carson Hinsman saved the season. I will say that.
Yeah.
He was the most impressive offensive lineman. It just shows how stupid this coaching staff is that he's sitting on the bench when he should have been probably the first guy in when Josh Simmons got hurt.
He probably should have been in before that. He probably should have been playing guard before that.
Yeah, so here's the thing, Jacob Evans. Yeah, you're right. If Ryan Day would have lost that Penn State game, his house would have been on Zillow. And that's why I wouldn't have minded if Penn State won. It would have given us like more time to save the recruiting class, more time to find a head coach, get ready to move into the offseason with a clean slate. But now we're stuck in this fucking purgatory that we just can't get out of, just doing just well enough to keep your job, but not actually accomplishing anything of real note. And that is like hell. It's not purgatory, it's hell. So that's why I'm thinking like what happened on Saturday was really worst case scenario for Ohio State, because Ohio State's going to make the playoffs. Ryan Day is, I don't know if he's, he shouldn't keep his job this season. If he loses to Indiana, I think he's going to get fired.
Well, maybe so, but I think he's going to roll Northwestern in Wrigley Field. He's going to roll Purdue.
That doesn't count.
He's going to.
Who cares?
He's going to roll Indiana, and he's going to roll Michigan at home, and then he's going to beat Oregon, and then continue it on to the national championship. And you're going to be so glad that he won this game in Happy Valley by 7 points.
We'll see, man. I don't know what else to say. I mean, he's got to win the national championship to save face for me at this point in time. And I said that last week.
But if he wins the national championship, you will be happy and pleased with Ryan Day.
Not completely, because it will have taken him a 20. They will have taken this motherfucker a $20 million roster to get it done. Can you imagine, like, most coaches in the country with a $20 million roster and how dominant they would be, Michael? And this fucking guy is struggling to beat Penn State on the road.
Well, there's a lot of other teams that have pretty high rosters. I mean, Oregon's got a pretty expensive roster. It's just that Ohio State
and they look pretty dominant.
Ohio State was stupid enough to advertise that. That was a horrible PR move, putting that out there that they've got this $20+ million roster. The Ohio State beat writers are idiots, and the administration are idiots for putting that out there. None of that should have ever been put out there. You just put a target on your back. But you know what? They say that Ohio State is like the New York Yankees of college football, and I'll wear that. I'll own that. Ohio State can be the New York Yankees. We need to start winning a few more championships like the Yankees. Of course,
Yeah, how many championships do the Yankees have? They have like
28, I believe.
Yeah, fuck.
But,
Yeah, we're not the Yankees, man.
but they
That's
haven't.
like Alabama and the Yankees are like
But
similar there.
but they haven't won any in recent years, and so in 2009 is the last one they won.
I would say the Ohio State is kind of like well, I would say the Cardinals based on like success, but the Cardinals aren't a big market spending team, so I don't know.
Yeah, well, the Yankees
Trying to think
analogy,
of- yeah.
the Yankees analogy has to do with how tough it is to play at Ohio State, how brutal the fans can be, how tough it is to be the coach, and the way that they're brutal in New York that, they'll turn on you quickly if you're not performing. And so that's kind of the analogy. And New York spends the money, and Ohio State is now being known as a team that spends the money. So that's the Yankees comparison.
On to the defense. They blitz, I wrote down some notes. They blitz more in this game, but they still didn't blitz enough for my taste because here's the problem, Michael. Drew Aller was allowed to move around in the pocket too much. He is a fairly mobile guy. And the receivers for Penn State are all slow and white and just not explosive. Should have went zero coverage all day and fucking challenge Aller because Ohio State's front four wasn't doing jack shit. Again, they never get pressure with only rushing four. Anytime they only rush four, he had all day to move around back there and run. Not that he threw for a lot of big gains, but he had all day to just do whatever he wanted. And man, oh man, am I disappointed in our defensive line at rushing the passer. But yeah, man, just, little blitz, not as much blitzing as I would want. Bad quarterback contains. Jack Sawyer missed a sack and looks slow as dirt. Why is this guy still playing?
Okay, I think there's some criticism there. Kenyatta Jackson needs to be playing.
They need to find. Well, again, we don't really have these people that are fast and athletic and long and explosive on our roster.
Jackson's much more of that than any of the other two that are out. Than Tuimoloau or Sawyer. And so, I mean, they need to get some of these guys in there and get them reps. I mean, McDonald, Kenyatta Jackson. Jackson played well this game. So, I mean, these guys are making an impact in the little bit of time they're in there. Get them some more time. It's not like Tuimoloau and Sawyer are just wrecking things.
Yeah, and what did Tuimoloau even do in this game? He's supposed to do well against Penn State. I didn't really see him doing anything.
He had a sack.
I didn't. Did he? Did he have an assistant? I know he was on a pile late, but did he get registered for that?
He had a sack. I mean, I don't think it was even a half sack because he grabbed the guy and he pulled him down. He was just kind of in a pile of people and he was able to get him and pull him down.
Yeah. And then back to the scheme, man. When Ohio State, when they did blitz in this game, and one thing that had a lot of problems with, Michael, is when they blitz, they're blitzing late, which is really a bad call every time. It takes away defenders in the pass game and gives the quarterback time to throw. If you're going to blitz, then have the guys at the line of scrimmage and come immediately. Don't fucking come from like 6 yards away and expect to get to the quarterback in a timely manner. If you're going to blitz, put them on the line of scrimmage and just fucking go. Or just run a simulated pressure. But none of this stupid bullshit where a safety comes out of nowhere from like the middle of the field and blitzes. Like, fuck that shit. That shit doesn't work, man. Penn State actually completed some passes doing that. Yeah, Ohio State created some pressures too, but I'd rather have my guys at the line of scrimmage and get the ball out quick or force the quarterback to get the ball out quick.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't looked at that enough to know if maybe Jim Knowles was using those safety blitzes from deep, gambling on a run to come up and fill run lanes. And then, just Penn State caught him in a pass on a few occasions. I'm not sure. I mean, I haven't looked at it, so I can't really comment on that. But I will say that he is certainly trying to generate more pressure. You can tell it's an active part of their strategy. They were doing some of those delayed blitzes. It worked one time for Cody Simon. They did kind of a twist.
Yeah, I think it was the first sack of the game was a late blitz. Lucky Penn State's slow at receiver, so they couldn't just get the ball out.
Yeah, and the linebackers kind of like almost did a twist, and a gap opened up there for Simon. He got through and got the sack. But 3 sacks. I'll take that.
Is that what we had as a team? We had 3 sacks against them?
Yeah.
Okay, because I will say this. Ohio State's lack of recruiting and speed was really showing up in this game from their defensive line. Even on plays you think that they're going to get to Aller, they just aren't fast enough or very good athletes enough to complete these plays. The edge recruiting has just been so bad, and it shows. It just shows. You can't tell me that those defensive ends from South Carolina wouldn't have a feast against Drew Aller if they had any sliver of light there. Like Ohio State, they're just slow as molasses. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, I got a thought on that. First, Ryan Day had a tough act to follow on Urban Meyer. The same for Sharon Moore at Michigan. Yeah, Day did have a tough act to follow, and he also had a fan base that was hungry for a national championship. Urban had gotten the quarterback thing figured out, that you got to throw the ball, and then the defense kind of failed them in 2018. And so by 2019, people were really ready to see something significant happen. And so Ryan Day has kind of carried that pressure. Sharon Moore, yeah, I mean, we've covered that we didn't think it was the right hire. We knew it brought some continuity, but this was going to be a down year anyway, and would have been a good time to go out and get the best coach. But on the defensive end at Ohio State, yeah, no, we don't have speed there. And yes, I think South Carolina's defensive line is probably better than Ohio State's, at least in the edge rushing department. And they've just missed on too many big guys. I mean, they should have one of those guys from South Carolina there. A DC kid picks South Carolina over Ohio State. He's foregoing a chance to play in the biggest stages in football to go to South Carolina and like be the best 5-3 team in the country or whatever they are. Yeah, I mean those are the battles that hurt, when this point of the season comes up.
Yeah, man. Oh, looking at the comments right here, I'm praying you guys don't win the national championship right after us. Okay, well, Jacob Evans, man, then cheer for Oregon or somebody in the Big Ten, because again, we're a Big Ten podcast, second to Ohio State. Southwest Lion, I'm sure you can attest to that. Like we were cheering for Michigan to win the national championship last year, because all it does is make our conference look better on the national scene and force teams in our conference to get better. So, okay, if you don't want to cheer for us, that's fine. Then cheer for Oregon or cheer for Indiana, but cheer for somebody in the Big Ten to get it done. Somebody in the Big Ten's got to try and break through and win a title. If I were to guess, I think Oregon has by far the best chance. Indiana's, even though Indiana's a really good team and they could probably punch with anyone, they're going to eventually step into a stadium and they'll be like, oh shit, we've never been here before and we don't know what to do type thing. And it's going to happen. And yeah, I respect the way they play, but that's what's going to happen to them.
And while we've got some Michigan guys on here, I don't think there's a team this year as good as the 2023 Michigan team was. I really don't think there's any one team that has played as good start to finish as that 2023 Michigan team. They were dominant against the bad teams, and then they steamrolled through the good teams, by beating them and winning the national championship very handily. So I don't think that there is a team like that this year. And that's why I think that Ohio State does have a good chance, because I think they can beat that Oregon team. And from what I've seen, that Oregon team's as good as anybody in the country. Could Georgia beat them? Of course they could. Could Oregon beat Georgia? Oh, yeah, definitely. No doubt about it.
Well, when I look at teams, Michael, I don't look at them like, in their everyday games. You have to look at them when they're at their best. One of the geeky things I used to watch that kind of got discontinued for a while, but they're trying to save themselves, is something called Death Battle. They basically take these fictional characters and fictional fights to the death and basically takes them at their best and puts them against another character. Well, when you look at Oregon, what can Oregon accomplish at their best? What does Georgia do when they're at their best? And when Georgia's at their best, I still think they're the best team in the country. And Oregon is the only team I have seen that can punch with them as long as Jordan Burch is healthy. If Jordan Burch is healthy, Oregon's the only team I believe that can punch with them outside of Alabama, because Alabama's in Georgia's head. So I just, it is what it is. I would say those two teams can beat Georgia and nobody else on a neutral field. Speaking of,
So
so let's get it.
you're not giving Ohio State that nod. You don't think they can beat Georgia?
Fuck no. Fuck no. Not even close. What? No fucking way. You got to be able to throw the ball consistently and throw the ball down the field to beat Georgia. Ohio State can't do that.
Well, yeah, and I mean, Carson Beck's a turnover machine.
He
So I
is,
mean,
but it's not like our secondary are a bunch of ball hawks either. Florida's defense is better than Ohio State's.
well, I don't know, but
Yeah, it is, because Florida was giving Georgia all they could handle until their quarterback got hurt. If Florida's quarterback doesn't get hurt, then because Florida had been turning their season around some, and yeah, they were turning their and DJ Lagway got hurt, and that's when like Florida's like offense went completely out the window. Yeah, I would say Florida's defense is better than Ohio State's. They're more aggressive. They create havoc. Like Ohio State, like what havoc do they create? Georgia's receivers, Arian Smith, would get behind our slow DBs, just like Oregon and Evan Stewart and Tez Johnson did.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Jermaine Matthews would need to play.
Yeah. I mean, Oregon's had some problems with Kentucky this year. They obviously had some problems with Alabama. Mississippi.
No, you're right, but I that's what I'm saying. I'm taking them at their best. Texas, Georgia is the Georgia you're going to get in those games. Who can match up with them when they're at their best? That's what you got to ask yourself.
Yeah, I mean, and we'll see. I mean, because Georgia has still got Ole Miss and Tennessee to go through, and the way they're playing, they could absolutely lose one of those games. But that wouldn't necessarily knock them out of the playoffs. But I just don't think they're a super elite team. I think they're a real good team. I don't think they're unbeatable. I think they've got a lot of holes. I think they've got a lot of areas you can exploit. Like Jacob said there, that Georgia, Texas, OSU, Oregon all could beat each other. Comes down to coaching and small margins. And I know your thoughts on that, Jay. You think that's exactly why they would lose the coaching in the small margins that Ryan Day hasn't been good at in these games. But I am placing my bet on the Ryan Day, the Ryan Day area of the table. I'm going in on Day.
Okay, Michael. Okay, buddy.
Go ahead and read the other comments.
Georgia, Texas, Ohio State all could beat each other. Gonna come down to coaching and yeah. Okay, you read that. Come on, yeah. Rage. Caroline Cutter. She doesn't seem to like what I have to say, but it is what it is. Picking Ryan Day. Did you just pick Ryan Day over Kirby Smart as a coach? I don't know that you said that, did you?
No, I didn't say that.
Oh, okay. I don't know what Jacob Evans is talking about. No. Okay, yeah. I think you're just saying that he has faith in Ryan Day, not that he's picking him over Kirby Smart.
I think Kirby Smart has gone back to the old Kirby Smart. The offense is struggling. He found the magic with Todd Monken, being able to utilize that Ravens attack with the tight ends and the running game and a mobile quarterback. Now he doesn't have he's got some mobility. Beck's not a stiff, but he's not as mobile as Stetson Bennett, and he makes bad decisions. It's not like he makes bad decisions like, no, he's made them all year. He's made bad decisions all year. Well, and they don't have very good weapons either. They don't.
Yeah, Georgia's receivers aren't the best. They're not as good as Oregon's. I give you that, but they definitely have speed there. And Arian Smith is a speedster. Artie Evans is a speedster. They have a lot of speed at receiver.
Oregon lost their best wide receiver.
Yeah, but for how long?
I think he's out for the year.
What? We need to research that, because I did know he got knocked out against Michigan fans. What do we know about the injury to the Oregon receiver? Do we know if he's out or what? Because I wasn't paying that close attention. Anywho, I tell you what, Michael, let's talk about Penn State for a second. Penn State, one of the reasons why this game did nothing for me as an Ohio State fan is, man, Penn State is filled with too many slow white guys. That wide receiver, Liam McIntyre from St. Xavier High School, Liam Clifford. I'm sorry. Liam Clifford, brother of Sean Clifford, the former Penn State quarterback. That guy should not be playing wide receiver in the Big Ten. What the fuck did Penn State do in recruiting to have him out there. Julian Fleming, I thought he was fine at Ohio State, but now he's going into Penn State. Oh shoot. He's going into, Penn State and like having to be the guy, and he's not the guy. He's just a possession receiver. The one wide receiver is, really good. I forget his name. He's been their best wide receiver all year, but he's a composite 3-star. The problem with Penn State is, and I knew they weren't any good, is that's what happens when you recruit skill players from the Midwest and Ohio. Ohio's a terrible football state now, Michael. You can't rely on it for like skill players and stuff. That Liam Clifford is exactly what you're going to get from Ohio. Slow white guys who can't fucking run. And that's why Ohio teams lose on the national scale. That's why Archbishop Moeller is losing to fucking Mallard Creek.
Hey, number 1 wide receiver for 2026 class, Ohio boy. I know he's out in California now, but he's an Ohio boy. He just decided to go out there.
He is definitely the major exception and not the rule.
Well, I'm just saying, number 1 wide receiver in the class right here, Buckeye. Okay, Tez Johnson is in a sling, and there are worries that he could miss extensive time. While CBS broadcast speculated that the injury could be a broken collarbone or separated shoulder, it seems likely that Johnson will miss time potentially into the postseason.
Jesus, that is terrible. Really, prayers up for him, man. Fucking hell. That is that's a killer to Oregon, man.
Kirby Smart needed Nick Saban's wide receivers to go down in order to win his first national championship. I'm telling you, it's lining up, Jay.
Okay, but that doesn't solve the problems that Ohio State would have against teams like Alabama or Georgia or maybe even Texas, because I think Texas would beat, I think Steve Sarkisian would find a way to out-scheme Ryan Day on a neutral field.
Well, I'm not worried about Georgia's wide receivers. I've watched them enough this year that
you don't have to be. You have to be worried about their defensive line and their linebackers and, everything else, because I don't know that Ohio State's going to be able to get off a pass against them.
I'm not overly worried about them either. I'm really not. I mean, they're a good team. I don't think they're anything that's going to like take it that like Ohio State's going to be like, oh gosh, we haven't seen this, or we haven't seen something very close to this. Shane Cup, Beck is awful, but he has a high ceiling. Yeah, he does have a high ceiling. I agree with that. He can get hot and be very dangerous. No arguments there. Signetti would be a great pick for Michigan. Yeah, he would be a great pick for Michigan. He's a little older, but hey, come give us 5 or 6 good years, and right off to the sunset. Didn't Penn State get an Ohio State guy? Yes, they got wide receiver transfer Julian Fleming. He's not doing much for them. He didn't do much for Ohio State. He was number 1 wide receiver in the country in his class 5 years ago, and he's just never really quite materialized.
What was I going to say? Do you follow recruiting? Think Michigan can flip Bryson? I've been looking into that. Apparently, Michigan is trying to put. Oh yeah, I follow recruiting very close. Bryce Underwood, best friend, the Dotson kid, just got. Who the hell is Dotson? I don't know who that is. See, I don't know who that is, but I have been following. Michigan flipped a corner from Georgia. Good news, but now they're going to have a corner, or a safety flip to Alabama. Bad news. They did get the 5-star offensive tackle. I think we addressed that like a week ago. But yeah, getting Bryce Underwood needs to happen. And this podcast is cheering for it to happen because, we want the Big Ten to be good. And the Big Ten being good means Ohio State's getting, Elijah Johnson from... Okay. Well, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, let's hope so, because LSU, here's the problem. Michigan's offense is not really built for a quarterback like Bryce Underwood. Kind of like how Justin Hill, the linebacker from Cincinnati area, Michael, like our defense is not built for him either. So yeah, you can pay them money and stuff, but if you're not featuring them well, they're not going to see an NFL future there. So I hope you can. A quarterback like that has no business ever going to LSU from the state of Michigan, none whatsoever. I mean, fuck, man, have him go to like Penn State or something, but he should never, ever be going into the SEC. So I don't know if you're going to get him or not. I hope you do. I'll leave it there at that.
Yeah, Michigan's got to get a quarterback, and they got to get some weapons back outside again. They're a little lacking in that this year. and they could be back pretty quickly because the talent, the cupboard is not bare, but they've got to get the recruiting going, which it's going not too bad, going pretty good for them this year, but certainly need to land a few more of those key guys. And Dave Portnoy is on the train of trying to help Michigan get a quarterback. He's going to pony up evidently some pretty significant money to a top quarterback to sign with Michigan.
It's too bad that Elon Musk can't be like a fan of all my favorite teams.
Right.
Like, especially like, can you imagine if he bought the Cincinnati Reds and how great that would be?
Yeah, it'd be amazing.
Fuck, man. Yeah, so he bought the Reds or he bought the Pistons, and yes, everyone, I'm a Detroit Pistons fan. And then the Tennessee Titans. Holy shit, man. I would freaking die of like, well, I don't know if I really want to say that word, but die of bliss. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
John, do we get in the college football if we lose twice? Yes, we do. Barring 2 additional losses this season, giving a total of 3, then Ohio State's in the national championship. I mean, not national championship. They're in the playoffs. I'm sorry. Do you think Underwood is better than St. Clair? I don't know because
they didn't compete against each other over the summer.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to really say, but I can tell you this. Bryce Underwood actually plays for Belleville, which is like big school Michigan football, whereas Tavian St. Clair plays like mid-level Ohio high school football.
Yep.
So, yeah, I would say Bryce Underwood's better than Tavian St. Clair.
He's at least probably got a bit of a development edge at this
Yeah,
stage.
he definitely does. And they kind of said that like with Tavian St. Clair, like not playing as many 7-on-7s and playing, small school football in Ohio. I really think to this day he should have transferred to some Division I school. I mean, it just didn't make sense for him to stay at what the hell I don't even know the high school's name at this point. I know they played Bellefontaine and lost. I forget. But yeah, man. Okay, there are a bunch of kids like yelling outside of my house and my windows open. I'm like, what the fuck is that fucking sound? But yeah, no, I see Belleville actually lost a game. Who the hell did they lose to? Wow, I thought they were the best team in Michigan. They might not be. Okay. Well, here's the thing. Tavian St. Clair's season is actually over.
Oh, did they get put out of the playoffs?
Yeah, they lost. They lost actually on Friday night. That's what I was saying. Yeah, that's it's unfortunate, but it's like, he's gonna play in the All-Star game, but okay, he plays for Bellefontaine. I was right. Yeah, the Pistons won 3 titles. It's been a while, man. It's been a long time since we won a playoff series, man. It's been since 2008 since we've been relevant Southwest Lion. And honestly, dude, I haven't really followed the Pistons much at all in the last couple seasons. I used to basically wait for the draft lottery, but after the Pistons have been screwed in the draft lottery, not getting a top 3 pick after having the worst record in the NBA back-to-back seasons, I just have no reason to really fucking care.
I think the lottery is absurd. I think if you're the worst team, you get the first pick. Baseball and basketball do this lottery. I think it's ridiculous.
Well, baseball just now got the lottery. It never used to be that way. The Reds got lucky and got the number 2 pick, but
yeah, but they had the worst record. So if they would have just done it the other way, they would have gotten the number 1 pick.
Okay, Jacob Evans agreed. Yeah. We're going to, yeah, so Jacob Evans, yeah, okay, yeah, you follow high school football like I do. Yeah, he knows, like, yeah, they play Cass Tech and all those big teams in Michigan. Watch a lot of the games. Yeah, man, I agree.
Flippin' Skippy is curious what the playoff rankings.
Michael, I think what we need to do is Wednesday night, we're going to do a live episode, and it will be a reactionary
to the playoff rankings.
Yeah, reaction to the playoff, and we'll do as like a kind of a pseudo Big Ten episode, talk about the playoffs and stuff like that. Yeah. But back to go ahead.
Well, I mean, I think the rankings are going to be Oregon, Georgia, Ohio State, Texas. I think that's going to be your top 4.
You think Ohio State's going to be ahead of Texas?
Yeah. I do. Because Ohio State has a better win than Texas, and Ohio State has a better loss than Texas. Ohio State has as good of a loss as Texas, and Ohio State has a better win than Texas.
Yeah, I think you know what? I think you're right. I mean, Texas has they did like beat Michigan on the road, but Michigan fans, let me ask you something. You watch Texas and Oregon close in person, both teams. Who do you think was better when you played them, Texas or Oregon?
Oregon sure looked better.
Curious what their answer is, because I know I watched the games, but not as in detail as probably they did. I'm curious what their answers are.
Southwest Lion said he would put them above Texas at this point. He thinks Oregon is better.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. I thought Oregon was probably better, but I just wanted to double check.
Yep. All right. You got anything else?
Well, we have to really talk about Purdue, man. And I was going to say just one thing about Purdue. Do you have anything for Purdue? We played Purdue this week.
Yeah, I know. No, I have nothing for Purdue. I'm not thinking about Purdue. That's the coach's job. That's the team's job to think about Purdue. Purdue, if they should go out and beat Purdue 50-10. I mean, it shouldn't be close. It shouldn't be a 31-14. It shouldn't be any of that. It should be minimum like 45-10. They just need to go out and take care of business. That's all I have to say about Purdue.
Yeah, I was going to follow up with that, and there's absolutely nothing to preview there. Purdue is so fucking bad that if the backups aren't playing midway through the third quarter, it will be a massive problem. Massive fucking problem. And
while we're speaking about Purdue, this is my thoughts on Purdue and Northwestern. Get out there, get after them, and get Julian saying as many reps as possible in the event that you got in a semifinal or a final game, like Tagovailoa. He came in as a freshman in the national championship game. If you had to put this supposedly uber talented freshman in to try and win a national championship, get him some reps against Purdue and against Northwestern, and get him as ready as you can. Of course, you don't want that, but if it happens, this is your last chance to really get him some time. Do not waste time with Devin Brown.
Yeah, no, I agree, man. I agree. Speaking of Purdue, man, they really fucked up by getting that Ryan Walters, the DC from Illinois. That was just a terrible hire.
It doesn't appear it was a good one. I mean,
no.
the results year one aren't stellar.
That man, it really was a killer that Braun went back to Louisville, but like his whole family and like everything, like foundation is in Louisville. But it really sucks that job came open because he was starting to do something there at Purdue. Mm-hmm. And it would be nice if we had like another solid Big Ten team. But man, oh man, they have fallen off a cliff without him. It's fucking, I feel bad for them because they actually have a decent football history, but nothing else to preview there with them. They just fucking suck. Play the backups. Chat, do you have anything left for us before we jump off here? Because I think we're just going to jump off.
We got the internet fixed tonight, so we haven't had any issues.
Yeah. Oh, well, one guy, Slipping Skippy, this is a perfect time for Chip Kelly to open the playbook even more and maybe try some trick plays. Yeah, maybe so. He needs to try trick plays against teams that can actually beat Ohio State. Yeah, not against the teams that can't beat Ohio State. We actually need to do something off the wall and different against the teams that can beat us. That's my biggest thing. You actually have to do something outside of the norm, kind of like how Tressel did when he won all those big games before he kind of collapsed in 2006, 2007, 2008. But then he kind of regained his form in 2009 and 2010 before he got unfairly fucking fired.
Yeah. Tressel got stale there for a bit, but he did some very innovative things, spreading Miami out. That was long before the spread was really a thing. And he's spreading Miami out and he's running Craig Krenzel. And this, once the defense is spread out. So that was a very innovative thing that Tressel did back in the day. But yeah, I got roasted on an Ohio State message board for stating that if Ryan Day is going to win big, he's going to take the Jim Harbaugh route, not the Kirby Smart route. And I've talked about ad nauseum why the Kirby Smart Ryan Day comparison is not good. And even the Jim Harbaugh comparison isn't great because Harbaugh inherited a total mess at Michigan and won a national championship. But I am just strictly speaking about Harbaugh seemingly kind of letting go of some of the ways that he wanted to win games stubbornly and kept losing against Ohio State and in the postseason. And eventually he cut it loose some. He did a trick play, I remember, against Ohio State. It was like a halfback pass or something that went for a big gain. Those are the little things that, can make the difference in these games. And Ryan Day has been unwilling to do that. So I would be in agreement with that in some big game in the future, maybe the Big Ten championship, if needed, maybe the playoffs, if needed, They need to have something in their bag that is a little tricky. Think about the 2014 team. Think about what won that national championship. You don't do a trick play with Evan Spencer hitting Michael Thomas perfectly in the back of the end zone, and they probably don't win the national championship that year. They won the national championship because there was one trick play that they had set aside, and it worked when they needed it.
Jacob Evans never ever listened to Buckeye Scoop. That's all they talk about on there. I mean, I've listened to them seldomly, but it's really not a very good podcast.
Who's talking about that?
He was basically saying that, you guys don't yell cheaters all day with the whole Michigan situation. And
no,
stuff.
You won the national championship, and I refuse to engage in that garbage. Like, if you would have come out in 2023 and you would have lost on your home field, then yeah, I would have been like, yeah, you probably cheated.
Connor Stallion seems like a weird dude, though. I will say that.
Beat him in 2021. You beat us in 2022, and then 2023, it was already out. Like, we had no excuse. So, and you won then too. So I don't. Ryan Day had his chance to invalidate the cheating, and he didn't take it. So I say Michigan won them fair and square, and they certainly won the national championship fair and square.
Yeah. So Michael, let's do a show Wednesday night. Everyone, tell your friends, tell your family about this. Like and subscribe. Michael, have you voted already?
Nope. I am going to vote Tuesday. I'm going.
Yeah,
I don't
think there's early voting on Monday.
No. I'm going election day of. So I'm gonna have to get over there and probably gonna have to wait in a big line.
I don't know, man. A lot of people early voted this time around. So I don't really know what's going to happen there with like the lines and stuff. Obviously, I'm going to go in the day and I'm going to take my son with me and have him skip daycare just because. Yes, Jacob Evans. Yes. Fuck yeah, man.
That'll be cool. Take the son to vote. So. All right, everybody.
Yeah, man, it makes me a little nervous.
Your civic duty. Tuesday will be a big day. We'll find out whether it's going to be Donald Trump or Kamala Harris, and we'll know Wednesday.
Politics on here. We've talked politics on here before. I think most of the people on here all agree, and we've kind of more or less said where we lean, and it's no secret where we lean on here. So
we're not white guys for Kamala. Okay, we'll put it that way.
Yeah, we're not communists.
Well, I'm not going to go there, but we're definitely not white guys for Kamala.
All right, man, let's get the fuck out of here. Thank you for everyone jumping on, everyone. Yes, I hope so. Southwest Line. I hope so. One of these days we will fucking talk politics more in depth, and but I just don't know how. This isn't a political podcast. I'm not a political expert. Michael knows a lot more than I do.
All right. Well, we're out. Thank you guys for joining us. And we will be back Wednesday with a college football playoff show and Big Ten kind of roundup. See you guys then.